is a message for anybody going through something difficult right now. Um, it's impossible to know if something, an experience that we're going through or have gone through, is ultimately good or bad, because we don't know the eventual outcomes uh, of the domino effect of everything that happens after that circumstance or event, which we have deemed good or bad. You know, I found this somewhat calming in my own life, because when things happen, especially bad things, right, that you think are bad, um, when they happen, they're really hard to go through, and it's not taking anything away from that experience. But what I found is we don't ultimately know what the outcome of that event is going to be, if it's going to be good, if it's going to be bad. Um, and I think that's based on, that's your perspective, right? And so I really do believe that things happen for a reason, and that, um, ultimately we can find gratitude for everything, and we can find opportunity in everything that happens, because the yin and the yang of it is there's two sides to everything. There's always two sides. There's always a polar opposite. So anything that happens, there's going to be positive and there's going to be negative, and it's up to us and how we frame our perspective, um, and how we're going to see that. And for me, that's super empowering, um, especially when tough stuff happens, right? And like, I do like to think of myself as an eternal optimist. I'm very positive. And so when things happen in your life, good or bad, whatever your perception, you know, we can view them as potentially bad in the moment. But then once you look back in a couple of years, a year, 2 years, 5 years, you can see all the beautiful opportunity and the positivity that was born from that experience, although maybe it was really hard to go through, and you would have labeled it as a bad experience. When you look back in your life, um, you'll be able to see that maybe it was good nor bad, hard to go through, but maybe you found a lot of upside in it going forward. I've also found that this frame of mind just really helps me to be present when going through life, because it takes away a lot of the need to constantly evaluate whether something is good or bad. It's just like something happens and it's like, okay, like the fact is that that happened. And it's really easy to get wrapped up in the negative or the positive, right? And I feel like when we get wrapped up in the negative or the positive, we have an expectation that something is going to be a certain way. And then what you'll find is potentially, the world or the universe or God has another plan, based on whatever happened. And so when we release this need to label things as good or bad, it allows us to really experience the moment for what it is, and just be present with our own, um, state of being and our thoughts and our emotions, and just allow us to process things more fluidly, and instead of getting attached to, you know what's potentially going to become of this event. There's a famous story, or Chinese parable, where there's this really well-known horse farmer. He's sort of known throughout the land for breeding horses, and his neighbors come and they say, hey, like, what good fortune you have, you're so lucky to have this talent of breeding horses. And he says, you know I don't know, like, I don't know if that's true, right? And then the next day, his prized horse breaks away from the stable, and his neighbors come over again. They say, hey, how unlucky you are, what bad fortune you have. He says, I don't know if that's true. And then, a week later, that same prized horse comes back, and he brings back like two more mares. And the neighbors come back over. They say, what good fortune you have. He says, I'm not sure if it's good or bad, right? And then his son, who's now breaking in these new horses that his original horse brought back, he's breaking them in, and then he gets bucked off one and breaks his leg, and it's a bad break. And so the neighbors come back over. They say, "What bad fortune you have, right? The gods are against you, whatever." And he says, "I don't know if it's good or bad." And then the son is sitting up on the porch crippled, and the army comes marching through town to collect all the young men to bring them to war to certain death. And the horse farmer's son is saved, right, because he is unable to go to war. And right, so I think this is a really good example of how we don't know the outcomes of something, if it's going to be good or bad, and we just have to be with the experience for what it is. And you can put your own slant on that. I like to put a positive slant on things and say, like, hey, everything happens for a reason. And even if something is really difficult, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. There's going to be a ton of learning that's going to come from that. And it's always from those challenging times in our life is where our largest periods of growth come from. So although we want to say something is bad in the moment and take it away if we could, I think we have to hold on to that notion that there is balance, and over time things will balance.